to watch Andy Griffin rest and start my work day up the next day. But I told Kim, I said, I need to go pray with Becky. Okay? So, I mean, I wanted to go. It was just that I was tired. And if we all admit that, that's why we haven't done things before. But I'm standing here right now. I have said it. I told Donnie about it. I've told different people about it. I am so glad that this old weak body right here didn't give in and just stay at home, because if I had her, I'd have never got to pray with Becky again. So I went over there, and it was just her sisters there and Donna and Angie. Nobody else was there except for me and Donnie. And me and Donnie went in there, and she was kind of in and out. And when he told her that I was there and wanted to just pray, she opened up her eyes. And as I started praying, and this is what's hard for me. You know, this is really hard for me, because in my life, I don't know. You know, God made every one of us, and He gave us things that we can do, things we can't do, special gifts and stuff like that. Mine, I felt like, has always been, I like to help somebody that's hurting or in need. I've always thought I could pretty much fix whatever. You know, I've done that plenty of times in my life. Back when we had that terrible first ice storm, we didn't have no current. Donnie calls me, he's panicking. Becky's laying in her bed, power's out, the oxygen bottle's fixing to run out. Thank the Lord I had a little bit of generator that would run that. I went over there and hooked that. But the reason I'm telling you this, because I won't never forget how she looked at me, because she was in a state where she couldn't do anything, help herself. Well, Donnie was panicking. Donnie calls me, so then I had to start panicking, but instead of just laying down and saying, I don't know what to do, I got my little generator, went over there, got her, at least it would run her machine. And she just kept thanking me. And I said, Becky, it's fine. You'll be fine now. But this particular time when I'm praying, I knew it was out of my hands, which I knew that all along. So I started just praying to God. I can't even remember what I said now. But the hardest part for me was this is all she said the whole time I prayed, was help me. Help me. And it really bothered me, because I couldn't do it. The only thing I could do was be there for her and Donnie. We walked outside, and I told Donnie that. I said, Donnie, this I don't even know how to tell you how I feel. You know, there we are both sad. We putting arms around each other, trying to encourage each other. And we stayed there a little bit, and I left. Well, then Tuesday morning, I've been really keeping a check on Donnie, texting him more. And, you know, I said, I ain't trying to bother. He said, no, you're not bothering me. I was just asking him, and I knew how he was doing, but I'd say, how you doing? And I'd say, are you okay? Tuesday morning, I had to run up here to the Rose's office building and meet a guy that I got to go do a job for. And evidently my phone went off when I was in there, and I didn't hear it. When I got in my truck to go to Pizza Inn, where Did and them was already at, I was going to text Donnie and ask him, how was Becky doing? I had already wrote it out, but then it popped up. Donnie sent me a text. He said, just to let you know, Becky just passed. And see, when you get something like that, I mean, I knew Donnie won't lie to me, but I called him. I said, Donnie, are you for real? I mean, it upset me so bad. So I had to run over to Pizza Inn, because my truck's got all the tools, air compressors, and we hook up in the truck and run in the building. So I got Did's truck, and I went over there. You know, and Donnie was outside like he normally. If you ever go visit Donnie, a lot of times he's under the carport. That's where he likes to sit and think and all. And he was there, and I went up and hugged him. We both cried a little bit. And I mean, what do you say? And we sit there and talked a minute, but then here's another thing hard for me. Because I was there, I stayed there. And when they got there to get Becky, then I've got to help get her out of Donnie's house. You know, and I thought about it yesterday. I had to put Becky in that doggone hearse thing twice and take her out once. Now, I was honored. You know, if somebody asked me to be a pallbearer, it ain't just a thing for me. I'm honored that the family asked me to do it, and I'll do it. I'd tote it by myself if I had to. But it was just hard on me, so I got to thinking about a lot of things. And like I say, Donnie told me, he said, Sean, I knew this day was coming. I tried my best to prepare myself for this day. He said, but I didn't know it was going to be this bad. And I told him, I said, Donnie, here's the problem. Now, this is for if you're happily married. I mean, happily. That woman back yonder I love more than anything. And I knew a new song came out, and it's for me. I don't like some of the lyrics, but it said, God, I was made for you. I feel like I was made for Kim. And I feel like she was made for me, because any woman wouldn't work for me, because I'm a handful. I can't do a whole lot of stuff in the house, but she's never, ever said anything. But I said, Donnie, the problem is the Lord will help, but it's going to be a hole in your heart, a void spot that nothing else on this earth can fill. Now, that only because it's somebody you really, really love. And the reason of that is in Genesis chapter 2, let me make sure I'm right, chapter 2, verse 24. You know, when God made Adam was doing all these things. He was around naming animals, doing all this stuff, and all of a sudden he says, Lord, I don't have anybody. God put him to sleep, and he made something for him. And when Adam woke up, man, he knew. Probably to Adam, that was the best thing he ever created, you know. And this is what God says right here in verse 24. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. When you are happily married, it ain't no more Sean and Kim or Tommy and Cindy or whatever. You know, it ain't that you are one person. And if your wife don't feel good, then naturally you shouldn't feel good. And when it's pain both ways. And so that's what Donnie's feeling. And you know, we kept on talking. He said, look, please, please tell the church how much they have meant to me, how much they did for us. He said, I couldn't be no more satisfied than what everybody did for us. But then he talked about all that, but he said, look, let people know. He said, because some of them don't know, and some of them didn't know how Becky was. And he said it yesterday at the funeral. She always worried about it a little bit because she couldn't do certain things. I mean, you know, all of us, unfortunately, we can't sing. We can't teach that good, or we can't do this, or whatever it is. And she kind of felt that way, but he said, just make sure you tell the people she stood by me. And I know that for a fact. Back before, even when she was sick, if she could have got it, if you mess with Donnie, she would whoop you. I mean, there won't be no questions asked. She was not going to let you talk about Donnie. And like Donnie said, and I never remember, as many times as I was around, I never heard her talk about anybody. And she was very giving, because Donnie had to watch it, because people would come there, and when they would knock on the door, Becky might not have but $5, $10 land, whatever it was. If that person really needed it, she gave it to them. And like he said yesterday, sometimes we upset him, but then he thought about why she was doing it. You know, that's what I'm saying. Everybody's got different gifts and things you have to do. But are you going to use them? So I think where I wanted to go next. Let me see. I done got a little mixed up here on my scripture. Ephesians chapter 25. Now I want you to think about this because of like I was talking about, the weakness of the flesh and the things you may put off. The thing you need to remember is when somebody is sick, and especially if they're dying, take time to go and pray with them, because if you don't, see, the problem we have is our next second ain't promised, but tomorrow definitely ain't. So just listen to these right here, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. It says, therefore, putting away lying, let each one of you speak truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath. And I read that one because I know each one of us in here at one time or another has gotten mad at something or somebody. You know, and then some people hold on to it longer than others. And the problem with holding on to it, if I got so mad with Tommy right there this morning, because he said, Sean, you're doing a terrible job this morning. So me and him stood in the parking lot and argued. He went home, I went home. A lot of Monday morning we eat at Bojangles. Well, I go up there Monday morning, Tommy ain't there. Something happened to Tommy. Well, I can't ever make that right. Not on this side. That's why God says, look, if that does happen, and you do get mad, and that's why he said you can be angry sometimes, but you ain't got to sin it. There's nothing wrong sometimes with getting angry and stern, but don't harvest it and don't let it be sinful. Then go make it right if you can. And sometimes you have to carry several people. Just don't let the sun go down until you. And that's the way I felt and was so glad about Monday, as I didn't let the sun go all the way down. It was about to. I wanted to go and pray with Becky. And I've done it for a lot of people. You know, I told Wednesday night, I said, you know, when you're a deacon, sometimes you get calls all during the night. You don't know what, you know. But if somebody calls me and says, Sean, look, I really need you to come here and pray with me. Well, I'm not going to say no. You know, even though in my body sometimes, you know, I just started remembering different times I had to do that. I remember when Donnie called me when all of a sudden Preston died. And that was unbelievable. That was like 1 o'clock in the morning we over there. You know, and it's so many things. When Miss Floyd and Mr. Floyd was coming here, when she passed away, we stayed there all night long. Mr. Floyd asked us would we stay until they removed the body. So, you know, I knew I had to get up Saturday morning. I got up every morning at 5 o'clock to go cut grass all day. And I still done it, but I was over there at about 4. So I never even laid down. I don't want, for me personally, and I'm telling you, you'll be happy. Do things like that for the Lord, because it'll haunt you the rest of your life if you don't. Because you can't make it right. I just thought about a lot of things. It says, nor give place to the devil. Let him who stole steal no longer, but rather let him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give him who has need. I picked this Wednesday night, but Donnie told me that Becky liked the scripture. Now you see why, because she wanted to help who was in need. And let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may be impart grace to the hearers. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice, and be kind to one another, tender-hearted, and forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. So, you know, he really wanted everybody to understand that was really who Becky was, even though it had been a long time, because she had been sick so long. And, you know, sometimes you don't know all them things about somebody. You don't know what's going on in their life. He wanted me to read Romans chapter 12 and 9 through 20. He said, let love be without hypocrisy. Harbor what is evil, cling to what is good. Be kindful and affectionate to one another with brotherly love and honor, giving preference to one another. Not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, and continuing steadfastly in prayer. Distributing to the needs of the saints, given to hospitality. Bless those who persecute you, and bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, and weep with those who weep. You know, when I thought about that, I texted Donnie this morning, and I asked him, because I'm going to do that for a while, and he wanted me to. I said, I don't want to bother you, but I'm just checking on him, because I know he's hurting. So I texted him earlier this morning, because I'm nervous and scared to death about being right here. So I texted him, I said, how are you doing? And I said, well, I might have said, I know how you're doing, but are you okay? That's what I said. And he was over there at the grave, and he told me, he said, Sean, I'm awful. He said, I know Becky's not here, but her body is. He said, and I just needed to come over here and just talk. He said, and I've cried uncontrollably. He said, I hope nobody's seen me. So that's why I want to read this. You know, we need to weep sometime with those who, and I texted him, I told us, well, I'm crying with you right here on the phone. On this other side. There's nothing else I can do, because I can't feel that spot that he's missing right now. But I can be a good friend to him and just let him know I'm thinking about him and praying for him. So We can all do that as a church body. We can weep with our pastor right now. Be of the same mind toward one another, and do not set your mind on high things, but associate with the humble. Do not be wise in your own opinion. Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard of good things in the sight of all men. If it is possible, as much as it depends on you, live peacefully with all men. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath, for it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Therefore, if your enemy is hungry, feed him, and if he is thirsty, give him drink, for in so doing you will heap coals of fire on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. You know, if we was all honest about that, it's kind of easy sometimes to think of somebody that you do love, but somebody you don't like, you could care less most of the time if you're honest. But the Lord is saying, try to let it go. Don't let the sun go down. Do what you need to do. If you love your enemy and you do for him, it's hurting him worse. That's what he's saying about putting the coals on his head, because then he's got to do something, or he's got to be miserable. I think I've said most of this, but Donnie said, you know, at the end of the funeral yesterday, or sometime right near the end, he looked at everybody and he said, look, men, he said, love your wife. Love your children, you know, and do what you need to do. And don't ever take it for granted. I try not to, I really don't. But for the last few mornings, I've been looking at Kim different. Even in the morning time before we wake up. I could roll in and put my arm around Kim. Donnie can't do that with Becky. And I know kind of what he's going through. But I don't know. But I told Martha and I told Rick, and I'm looking at Miss Becky, I'm looking at Miss Patterson. I don't know if I'm missing anybody or not, but if you've lost your wife or your husband, you can go to Donnie and you can tell him, you know, kind of what to expect. Miss Becky told me on the phone, I don't guess you mind me sharing it, that way you felt about when Billy passed away. She said the hardest thing for her was learning to live by herself, because it is. I had to watch I had grandparents, and my mama's mom and dad I called Nana and Papa, and I had a pa and granny. Well, both of my granddaddies died before my nana and my granny did, and I had to watch what it did to them. They never was like real happy no more. They went and done what they could do, but they won't. And I told the people Wednesday night, this is just my story, but you know, I was young when my daddy died. I was 12 years old. And at 13 years old, I moved in with my granny because she was afraid to stay in her house by herself at night. And it won't no other option. Becky probably don't even know this, but Mickey told me one time years ago, he said, Sean, you was a man at 12 years old. He said, the way you did things, he said, you was actually a man at 12. I stayed up there every night. I took care of my granny. But then the same way that happened to Donnie when it was ready for her to pass, she had cancer in her brain. She had brain damage. We actually had, after 5 days, my dad and his sister had to unplug her, and I was back at it. I wanted to go back there and say bye to my granny because, see, I felt the same way I did standing beside Becky's bed. I've been used to protecting, taking care of, picking up stuff, throwing, whatever I needed to do. But I stood there at 18 years old and watched my granny fixing to die, and I felt just like a child, knees turned to Daddy had to drag him out the room. I felt helpless. So, you know, and then I can remember when my papa was dying. Great big, you can't tell it by my mom. My granddaddy was big. And right before he died, he fell one morning. I had to go there and get him up. And he looked at me, he said, Sean, I'm dying. He said, I know the Lord, he said, but I'm worried about one thing. He said, that's your Nana, my wife. So I promised him right then, because she didn't want to stay where she was by herself. You know what I did? With the family's help and everything, I moved her right beside me. And that's where she stayed and she was dead. That's all I could do. I'm just saying, as you look at your family, you think about your loved one and the friends, you're going to have to do things when you don't feel like it. You don't know whether you got the money. You don't know about this. I mean, you know, when all this happened, I was young. I didn't have nothing. Me and Kim was living from Friday to Friday, and barely. But I love my grandparents, I can tell you that now. I look around now and I see people children not taking time out with them. It just they don't even know what they're missing. Because I got a whole lot from my grandparents, I can tell you that. And that's what Donnie said about Becky, you know, was talking about how, you know, I didn't even know it, but she quit work a long time ago to take care of his daddy when he had got sick. She really helped when Donnie's mama was sick and all. People do a lot of things sometimes you don't know about. And you're probably one of them people, so keep doing it. But don't ever let it cross your mind and say, you know, I really need to go and make this visit to this person who's sick. But don't let going fishing stop you, or just going home and laying and say, well, I'll do it tomorrow. Well, guess what? Your phone will go off and it'll say such and such just passed. Well, then you can never do that. So I'm just encouraging and telling you, don't do that. I remember Maynard Garrett and Betty when they was going here. Some of y'all may not even know him, but when he was dying, Deacon was going over to his house. He wanted communion one more time in his life. He couldn't come here. He was too sick. I thought Donnie was going to go with it. He said, no, you do it. You need to learn. I had never done communion, so I went over there, and the deacons, we carried a hymnal. We sung the Maynard with no music. We done communion with him. And when we were singing at the end, just like we do here, Blessed Redeemer, Maynard laid down in Betty's lap because he knew his life was over. And he didn't live too long after that. But I can look back and say, you know what? At least I tried to go and be there for him the best I could. I told him about Fatback's mama. Back when she was sick, she was in a coma. I thought Fatback and them was there, but he had left. They left because they were calling for terrible storms that evening, and it was raining bad. Me and Eric, I said, I want to go see Greg and all them and his mama and pray with them. So Eric rode with me. It was terrible weather. We finally got there. Greg and him had left for some reason. All of them had went home, and doctors, they couldn't wake Mary up. They had gave her some medicine, she wouldn't wake up. One little young nurse standing there, when I told her who was going to see, she said, well, the family's gone. I said, all right. I said, can we go back? She said, you do know this lady's in a coma, right? I said, yeah. I said, we just want to go back there and pray, and then we'll leave. So me and Eric went back there, just me and him. We prayed. We signed a little board just so Greg and them know we were there. I don't even know if I had told him during the day or not. I can't remember. Next morning, Donnie called me. He said, Sean, he said, do you realize what you did? I said, no, what do you mean? The way he said, I thought I did something bad. He said, y'all went over to the church last night, and them people, well, I don't even think you and Eric was real. He said, Mary has woke up this morning. Now, she won't heal from everything, but she had woke up. And them people that still are convinced that me and Eric won't weird. That little girl said, I think 2 million angels came in here. I said, well, we were a pitiful excuse for that, but that's all we knew to do. It was nothing else we could do, but we went in there, and me and Eric both took turns praying, and we came home. Was it a good night to go? No. Late at night, pouring down, thunderstorm, but you have to do them things. I haven't read Ephesians. Yeah, I did read that. I think I've read all my scripture, but what I wanted to say was just remember your wife, remember what marriage is, remember when you did say your vows, and if both are still living, just keep on loving. And because one of these days everybody's got to face that. Reuben, Brenda, y'all face it. I didn't mean to skip y'all. Well, I say don't hold it against me, Jabbo. Y'all can really talk to the pastor and tell him, because I've told Donnie, I feel like, and Donnie said it too, it's going to be like 3 or 4 weeks from now is when it's really going, because he told me that the other day. He said, Sean, right now everybody's here. I got stuff around. He said, I'm still hurting, but my family's around, everybody's coming around. But see, I feel like today, which I know they're going back, and they want Donnie to go, but he's not ready yet. He told me, he said, I may go Tuesday or Wednesday. He may change his mind. He may go today. But he's going to need us, so just call him and check on him. Text him. See how he's doing, and if any of y'all have the time, go by there and share with him what helped you the most. He knows, but it don't hurt to talk to somebody, and encourage them for one another. I did want to read this part, and I got a little bit of time. It was read yesterday. But this right here is to every wife. And hopefully that's the way you are, and most wives are. Proverbs 31:10. I'm going to read it even though it was read yesterday, because Donnie really wanted me to read this. Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. And Donnie broke that down yesterday about how he felt, and no amount of money meant more to him or anything else. That's how much she was worth. The heart of her husband safely trusts her. He talked about that. He said that one thing he was confident of, that Becky was never unfaithful to him, and he wanted her. So he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and willingly works with her hands. She is like the merchant ship. She brings her food from afar. She also rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household. And I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to say most women know how that is. Things has changed a little bit now, the way husband and wife do things. Now, I love my wife. I love my two boys. But me waking up in the middle of the night and giving them a bottle, it didn't happen very often. Because unfortunately, Diddy was laying over there, slammed, sleep, knocked out, didn't know where he was. But guess where Kim was at? I don't know how she done it, because then she was working. And Christopher and Tyler both got their nights mixed up, and they stayed up all night long. I can remember holding Christopher one night. It was raining so hard, and I'm crying with him, please go to sleep. I was trying to give Kim a break, and I knew I was tired, and of course he wouldn't. But that's just what y'all women do, if you're a good wife. And a portion of her maidservant she considers a field and buys it. From a profit she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and strengthens her arms. She perceives that her merchandise is good, and her lamp does not go out by night. She stretches out her hands to the distaff, and her hand holds the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor. And that's what Donnie was really talking about Becky yesterday, because I can tell you in that neighborhood there's a lot of hurting people. And where do they end up at? In Donnie's driveway, knocking on that carport door. And they always wanted, not a whole lot most of the time. Most times a little something to eat, maybe $1 or $2. Or sometimes, like Donnie said yesterday, one man came there cut and Becky fixed him. And you just have to do them things as a Christian sometimes. And if you do, this is what the Lord's saying about you right here. She reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household is clothed with scarlet. She makes tapestry for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies sashes for the merchants. Strength and honor are her clothing. She shall rejoice in time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. She watches over the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done well, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful and beautiful in passing. But a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. And that's the way Donnie felt about Becky. And I could tell you some more stories, but I know that was true. She done a whole lot behind the scenes. And it means a lot, because sometimes I'll leave here on Wednesday night when I leave, and I'll look at Kim, I say, what I say make any sense? And we were joking about it this past Wednesday night, because I said, did I do all right? She said, you doing all right. I said, what does that mean? I told her, I said, that just cut me. Then she said, no, I meant to say you doing good. I said, well, say good, don't say all right. I said, the way you say, because, I mean, really, you have to build confidence from somewhere. And when you're married, you feed off each other. And when you're not feeling good or stuff ain't right, where else do you go? Especially the older you get, you know, you can't just go anywhere. So, you know, I look to her sometimes and I'll ask her, you know. And Donnie done the same. You know, he's told it before, especially me and Tommy sometimes talking. He'd be struggling with something that he wanted to preach or whatever, and Becky would find that, and she'd just holler in there, and, you know, do this, do this, do that, and he would end up doing it. So, what I'm saying is, what I wanted y'all to really think about today, of course, was I wanted to honor Donnie and Becky, and I wanted to even remember our church being started by them, and I wanted to support them. But I wanted you to think about your marriage. I wanted the ones that had lost their spouse know that I do care. I do think about it. Other people think about it. I read that verse the other night when it was talking about how you say it, circumspectly, and I remember Henry talking about that in Sunday school a lot. You remember things, you just don't come out and say it all the time. That's what's so good about a church family, and that's why I think I read it about when one body. One part of your body, I may not have read it, but one part of your body suffers, the body can't do what it's supposed to do. If your hands hurt, now there's Danny, he knows his neck and all, so it makes the rest of the body not be able to function to its fullest. Well, that's what's happening to us right now. We're all a body of Christ in this church, everywhere in the Christian, but in this church, we are a body of Christ. And right now, one of our members is hurt, and it happens to be our leader, our shepherd. So we got to do what we got to do the best that we can, and the best thing to do is be there for him. And he'll be back. He just got to do some thinking now, and he will. But just don't forget him. You know, you got his phone number. Just text him or call him, reassure him that everything's fine, and he'll be back taking care of us before long. And I just want you to just, you know, think about it from this day on, how important it is to go and just pray with somebody when you know they don't feel good. But anytime, you don't have to be on your deathbed, because tomorrow's not promised for us. So take the time, if God lays on your heart to go talk to somebody or make something right or pray with somebody, don't put it off. Just do it. And then whatever the outcome is, you'll be, you know, you've been done all you can do and be satisfied. So I guess that's all I was going to say. But like I say, it's just been a hard week. And, you know, we've all lost loved ones, and we know it's hard. But I still say, I thought about it yesterday when I rode home, because we didn't been to so many funerals ago. You know, usually when a funeral was over, me and Donnie talk a little bit, and everybody goes home. Well, I went home. I had Kim with me. Yesterday, when Donnie left that cemetery, he didn't have his wife with him. That's what he said yesterday. When he woke up Wednesday morning, he said that was the first time he had woke up in 54 years and knew Becky wasn't there. And I know y'all, because some of y'all is lost, y'all can share the same thing. So you know how he feels. Take the time to talk to him and pray for him, and we're going to pray for him. So thank y'all for coming today, and I guess we'll close now with an invitation. Y'all want to play, whichever one of y'all want to play, just as I